Welcome to the next episode of the CAPB podcast. Today we have Garrath Williams, who is not only a veteran of the British Army, but also a veteran of the Australian Army and the founder of Veterans Can. Welcome, Gareth.
Thank you, mate. Good to be here.
It's good, mate. It's good to have you on, mate. You're doing some incredible stuff in the veteran space, and to have you on the CAPB podcast, the premier veteran entrepreneur podcast, it's a pleasure, and we're looking forward to hearing all about it, mate.
Yeah, mate. I've seen some big boys on your podcast already, so I feel privileged to be invited along. Good on you, doing a good thing.
Well, we've had some people on where they come on our podcast as their first ever podcast. It sets a nice low bar for them to then progress onto great things. So but welcome, mate. So Gareth, as I say, you're a veteran of not only the British Army but the Australian Army. If your military career was sort of a highlight reel, what are the things that really jump out?
Sandhurst was good fun, bit of bullshit, but it was quite good fun. Met some good people, did a bit of marching, learned that leadership stuff. I did a couple of years at ITC Catterick as DS. That was good. That was at the time when those Muppets flew into the Twin Tower, so it kind of changed everything. We watched it on TV, so little did we know then that overnight things were going to change. That was cool. Bounced around as a young officer, doing young officer stuff in Germany, misbehaving and having a good time, getting paid to play some rugby, getting paid to do some army stuff. Took Platoon Commander's trip to Kosovo, which was magic. Really enjoyed that. I had a big platoon of 50 odd guys. Kosovo was fairly steady, so it wasn't a bad run out as a first operational tour for me. Did some good stuff, and then jumped ship to Australia. Managed to blag my way through a few jobs. And became a company commander in Afghanistan in 2010 on a pretty punchy tour out there. So, that was definitely the highlight of my career. And done some cool stuff. Managed to get away with stuff. Managed to blag some good things. Managed to make things happen. And I've always been a kind of bloke who likes to make things happen. Who likes to sort of pull some strings and do things a bit differently. I enjoyed doing that, and Oz as the sort of whinging pom to say, well, why don't we try this? Well, because we've never done it before. Okay, well, why don't we try it? But anyway, that was cool. So in a nutshell, a few bits and pieces, a few highs, a few lows, but more highs than lows, definitely.
How did you feel deploying as a company commander to Afghanistan with the Australian Army? Did you get to work with the Brits while you were out there?
No, not really. So we were mainly working with the Dutch, a few Frenchies. So it was a magic job, like any sort of command job is. Feel massively privileged. I had a good sort of mini combat team really. So I had 2 infantry platoons, a cav troop, a couple of engineer sections, some int guys. So a real sort of Kelly's Heroes buggers model. We did some good stuff. We took over a new area so when the French pulled out, the Australians took over. So we. I guess we had all that to plan and to put into fruition, which was great. But massive honour to lead any soldiers, but particularly an environment like that. So loved it.
Because you're a troop commander and you deployed an ops in the British Army as well, is there a difference about how you lead, whether it's with Brits or whether it's with the Aussie guys or our soldiers? No,
I don't think so, mate. I think you just you try and be as honest and upfront as you can, roll with the punches, and for me, it was all about, sounds cliched now, but preparing for the uncertainty. You're going into that environment where no one had a Scooby what was going to happen. We, particularly as a force element, didn't know what role we were going to be in. There was a lot of omelette stuff going on then. There was a lot of mentoring. There was a lot of, reconstruction bits. So, we had to kind of just be the jack of all trades, which I quite liked. And we bounced around, and it's, for me, looking after blokes is looking after blokes, and I mean that in the broadest politically correct or incorrect term. And it's just about just doing what you say you're going to do. I think is the biggest lesson I always took and will always pass on. Whether I did or not, I don't know, but someone else will report back on that, I'm sure.
I love that, mate.
Seems a very very busy career, obviously spanning other 2 halves of the earth, really. So you got out when 2016.
That's right, yeah.
Talk us from then to now, and was Veterans Can a thing then, or is it more recently? And can you just explain what is veterans can as well.
Yeah, sure. So I guess to bounce through that journey, wank word alert. But I left the military, didn't really know what I was going to do. Needed to find myself like a lot of us. Ended up doing a few decent jobs which were a bit dead end. Got made redundant once, or in fact got made redundant twice. Once was because COVID. Once just because, well, either I was shit or the system changed. So again, all part of the rich tapestry of life. When you leave the military. I worked in the charity sector for a couple of years, running an employability course for veterans who needed help finding jobs and making themselves more employment ready. Did that for a little while, and then, as I said, we all got made redundant after COVID, unfortunately. And then there's an organisation called Job Oppo, which is my sort of day job. So again, Job Oppo is a veterans employment community. So again, we provide employability support and assistance, advice and guidance about interview skills and that, and CVs, and positioning yourself in the right place and making sure that your skills and experience are translated on paper as well as in an interview. And then we've got a job board, and we just help place people into decent jobs, and then create that community around. If Dave's gone over there and found a good job, well, Dave wants to bring John with him because John's a good lad as well. And, that sort of cycle and tapping into that sort of that unwritten rule that we all look after each other. So Job Oppo was the day job, but there's something that already scratched, sort of been scratching my itch around the charity sector. And I just felt there was a lot of negativity. There was a lot of doom mongering. There was a lot of bad, sad and mad narrative. There was a lot of people that owned the messaging because, the negative messaging gave them oxygen for their flames. And I, like most good ideas, it came whilst walking a dog, walking my dog. And I was thinking, why isn't there a charity or an organisation that highlights and showcases the good stuff that people go on and do after the military? Because, they were in the military. And if you can find some stories that says, look, I only climbed that mountain, or I only started that business, or I only had 12 kids, or whatever you think is good, because I was in the Royal Navy for 5 years, or whatever your story is. For me, that's turning that narrative on its head. It's about inspiring other people to say, look, it's all right to do good stuff. It's all right to be able to point your finger at your previous career, or however long that career was. We hear all the time that, my time in my military was my foundation years, a great experience. I met some amazing people, did some cool stuff. And that's made me the human being I am now. And we wanted to create something that sort of showcased that. And that's where sort of Veterans Can was born from. Again, it is just a platform to highlight and to connect people that are out there that are doing okay. And, that doesn't mean, and forgive me jumping if I'm waffling already, but, that doesn't mean that we don't recognize that some people struggle. We've all got mates who are struggling or have struggled. But again, it's just providing that alternate narrative and providing an option for people to sort of say, right, instead of taking the left fork and go down the woe is me line, I'll take the right fork and go, let's high five and celebrate the wins. And let's look after each other, look out for each other. Enable each other to do some good stuff. So that's ultimately that's where we're at.
I think,
which is cool.
I think it's really cool. And I think it's similar to what we do on the podcast. It's like, we think there is so much talent in the veteran community, so many good businesses that have been born out of their experiences and that tenacity and drive that people pick up from their military careers, and they take it into business and are unstoppable and disrupt real big markets. We're not talking about just selling the odd t-shirt. We're talking about people who are globally successful in business and all the way down to people who have started shops and run pubs and stuff. It's a brilliant, for us, it's a brilliant opportunity, or a really humbling opportunity to be able to celebrate people's success, including what you're doing. Veterans Can. One of the things that jumped out to me with what you do is, please correct me if I'm wrong, don't you have a thing where you use the funds generated from within Veterans Can to then support veteran-owned businesses as a startup? I think that's a brilliant thing. Can you tell us about that, Gareth?
Yeah, again, like lots of good ideas of mine, it's born from cynicism and being pissed off with the way things happen, right? So, and that makes me sound very negative, but I like we've all done probably back in the day, ran marathons and did stuff and raised money for big charities and stuff, and had no real oversight or insight where that cash went. So you raised $3,000 running London Marathon or whatever. and that goes into the big bucket, and you've got no visibility of where that goes. Does that matter? Well, I think it does. I think it matters more now than it probably used to. So we wanted to set up a cause, an organisation that that was transparent and tangible. The benefit, and the output, the outcome was transparent and tangible. And also, we wanted people to be able to have a say and dictate what we want to support. So the model that we've created is a subscription-based, membership-based model, and we say that at least 70% of income goes into a bucket. The rest goes into just making the wheels turn, because, as you know, there's a cost to everything. No, there's no wages taken, but websites and apps, and you get charged for everything, right? So again, I didn't want to be one of those bullshit artists that says, look, 100% of what you gives us will go on to doing this, because 9 times out of 10 that is bullshit. So of the 70% that's in this bucket, we then say, right, we want to enable veterans to go on and do good stuff. That could be a business, it could be a charitable endeavor, it could be anything. It's about the human being. I didn't want it just to be, people doing charitable stuff. I wanted it to be people doing business, because people running businesses are okay too. I get the impression, I've seen that some people look down their nose that you're a corporate wanker because you're running a business. Well, actually, I'm still quite a good human being. I'm still very proud to be a veteran. I'm still very supportive of those around me, but I run a business. That's not a bad thing, right? So again, it was just bringing all those individuals and those good ideas and those good people together and saying, right, collectively, we've got 5 grand, 10 grand, whatever it is in the bucket. We want to be able to support veterans. We want to be able, to give you, the members, the choice and the chance to, 1, nominate yourself or someone that's close to you, and 2, dictate where that fund goes and why. So yeah, got a simple process where we say, right, we've got money in the bank. We're doing our next one in April, May. Here's the cash that's available. Here's the sort of the one pager of what we're kind of looking for. Fill in your details. There's a shortlisting process. Once we get the shortlist is then goes to the people, the community. There's a couple of days where they do a bit of electioneering or pitching or whatever you want to call it. And then ultimately the people decide, they press the button, they vote for 1, 2, 3 or 5. And, the person that gets the most votes gets a check in the bank the next day, and it all happens super quick. Whether everyone, I guess most people I speak to who have been involved in the process as someone that, that put their paperwork in, someone that got involved in the voting, someone that received a bucket of cash, are massively proud and pleased to have been involved in the process. And I just think it's a bit unique that, collectively, as an organisation, we've gone on and given someone a £10,000 grant, and you can actually stand up and say, I helped make that happen, either simply by joining or by voting or whatever it is. That's again, I'm biased, but I think that's quite cool.
I don't think it's quite cool. I think it's brilliant, and I think from us we've recorded over 50 episodes of the podcast, and all of those businesses and all those people have needed to take the leap at some point to commit to driving that business forward.
Yeah.
And I think one of the things that can hold people back is having a cash injection.
Of course, yeah.
We've had some successful businesses who have started with 50 quid. They've started with 50 quid during COVID and have grown to great successful businesses.
Yeah.
Others have. We had one guy, shout out Carl Banner from Dry Trek, who spent his family savings on it. Yeah. And it led to the business successful, and his family got behind him. But some people haven't got that. So if you've got this incredible business idea or something that you really think you want to push forward and can make a difference in your life, to have Veterans Can there and have this process there where you're in with a shout as good as anyone else. And like you just said, what really stands out is it's a really simple process, and you'll have the check the next day, versus there are loads of different random government grants and stuff you can apply for, but you've got to give your firstborn child and half a kidney to be considered. And I think what you're doing genuinely, and the level of transparency with it is exceptional. And I think it's really needed in that veteran space.
Yeah, it's great, and the stories, we've only been doing this for 12 or 18 months as well, but, the stories of the people that we've, we call it enablement rather, it's not handout. It's not, it's enabling someone to go and do something good, whatever that is, The first grant went to a bloke called Tom Burgess, who runs Save a Warrior UK down on the South Coast. Again, that's a sort of anti-suicide or a suicide prevention course program. Yeah, he got the sort of inaugural grant. Guy called Kev Wills, who painted all the people that were killed in Afghan, all the portraits. Again, we supported him. We got him out to Nepal last year to literally hand deliver the Nepali or the Gurkha portraits to their families in Pokhara. We've funded a lad called Kieran Honeyman, who created and trained employment for 5 people. So he trained them all, and forgive my ignorance, but they do. You'll know this. They do diggers and plant and all that kind of stuff, and big dump trucks or whatever. So again, they got all their tickets to go and do that, and then he got them a job. So there's 5 blokes that that are profited from that as well. Young Dion, who got our last grant. Again, starting her own business, and this is the beauty of it. So her business is training other veterans to become virtual assistants. So her business has had the boost, and she's built the website and she's created this program. But then she's got, I think, 16 or 18 veterans who are enrolling into her program. That's free. That's been funded by us. So, the ink blot, and that's all kind of just done by accident, right? Because if you enable a good person, they're going to probably go on and do something good as well, particularly in our world. So, yeah, it's magic.
It's that pay it forward, isn't it? It is crazy the amount of people we've had on and the amount of veterans out there who have built successful businesses, but their default, almost written into the thread of what they do, is to support the veteran community, to support the military charity community. They've got no real, some of the like support combat stress and all kinds of, or reorg and all these charities, where they haven't had to use that charity. They're just saying, no, that charity's doing a good thing, so we're going to give a percentage of profits. And I think, it's something that stands out from the veteran community, because I would say in normal business, the default isn't to think, how can I give away some of my profit? And it seems to be in the military space. It is there.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, that's what we're trying to bottle it to a certain degree. That there's your ability to do that. Yes, of course, you can donate 5% of your profit or your income to X or Y. And again, what we're building Veterans Can is an alternate choice. So donate 5% of your annual income to Veterans Can, and it won't just disappear into the ether. You'll actually be able to see it grow and the people around it grow. So, and that takes time, right?
Love it.
Speaking of time, from that, your initial dog walk to 12 to 18 months to now, what's one of the biggest lessons you've learned in starting this, in starting the venture, starting the business?
I think I've been very fortunate to have a good business partner who is patient with me. He's not a veteran himself, but he's a veteran business bloke. So he's my adult supervision, I guess, in both Job Oppo and Veterans Can. And I've always been the kind of bloke, just fucking do it, just give it a crack. And I will always advise people that if you genuinely believe that you've got something and you're onto something, then give it a whirl. What's the worst that can happen? Again, it's easy sitting here saying that, right? And that's I guess that's always been my mentality. Do what you say you're going to do, as I said at the outset, and just give it a crack. Back yourself, and I'll from an employment point of view, I'll always say that to all veterans, that that we're, despite what some people might think, predominantly we're fairly humble, and don't understand our own skills and ability really, and what that means in terms of worth in the real world. But yeah, back yourself and just make stuff happen.
I think it's a brilliant bit of advice, and lots of people have that. When we leave, we've spoke about it a fair deal on here. You lose that purpose, don't you? You feel that when you're in, you understand what the next steps are. You understand what the next job is. You understand how to progress and how to promote and what the system is. But when you leave, it's that fear of the unknown, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. But I'll counter that by, that's so normal. Everyone that's ever left the military from day one, week one, has always felt that, right? So I struggle to understand, and I've left, I guess, twice. But I've struggled to understand why people see it as a massive cliff edge in the end of your life. The flip of that is actually you're leaving the military community and you're joining the veteran community that's probably more supportive, more flexible, more experienced, more stand up for you, regardless of what colour uniform or cap badge you wore, than the military community. And I think that, again, if we can use Veterans Can to really bang the drum around how supportive the whole veteran community is, and not just the UK, around the world, that's another piece around Veterans Can which we haven't spoken about, the kind of global piece that, that's magic. We've got veterans from 26 different nations who are part of the community, and we're all one and the same, right? There's a slight different accent. We call different stuff different things, but actually there's a massive bond that connects all of us. And that's, again, that's pretty cool, and we've got a big launch event going off in Australia in a couple of weeks. And it's just great to see a good idea you had walking the dog a couple of years ago being picked up by someone on the other side of the world and almost taken on as their own. Yeah, that's magic.
It's making a difference, mate. That kind of stuff makes a difference, like a huge difference. And I think, that's the thing. And we've seen there's quite a lot going on with Veterans Can. Mm-hmm. Lots of events coming up, and we've seen some stuff. There's like the veteran games.
Yep.
I saw. Do you know what I mean? The veterans kind of supporting. So I guess that leads us on to the next kind of question, which is, what's on the horizon? What's on the immediate horizon for Veterans Can, and what's the things that we can look forward to in the next sort of 6 to 12 months?
Yeah, so again, there is a lot going on. We host fundraising events, and again, events that are there to help us put our name out and about, as well as raise a few quid to put in the coffers for more grants and the like. So we've got a golf event, we've got a shooting event coming up over the summer. We run sort of exclusive members only events as well. So we're at the Tower in May, Tower of London, where, again, we give people the experience to come and have a beer in the Beefeaters Boozer, watch the ceremony of the keys. Again, just a high five for people that have committed to becoming members of the club. And there's a certain amount of FOMO then that goes around, and people sort of looking over the fence, which isn't a bad thing. And yeah, the Veterans Games, as you mentioned, we're launching that over the next probably week or so. So our intent for that is threefold almost. I want to create a kind of festival, but it's not really a festival, but it's a gathering of veteran-owned businesses who sell stuff, do stuff, say stuff, or need stuff, to come together and have stands and stalls and whatever that may be. And again, it's a celebration of. It's not all just about T-shirts. There's a lot of different people doing different stuff. And there's a lot of connections that can be gathered from that, outside of the WhatsApp groups and stuff that are out there. You can actually have a hard and fast conversation around supply chain, connections or that network. So we'll do that. On the same day, we're hosting the sort of the pilot of the Veteran Games. So the Veteran Games is been running in Australia for the last 3 years. That was born out of the Royal Commission into Defence and Veteran Suicide in Oz that was held 3 or 4 years ago. And some of the findings of that were veterans, missed that sense of purpose. They missed that sort of that constant physical activity. They missed the crack. They missed the banter, and all the other. So they built the Veterans Games in Australia, which is in essence a series of command tasks or team obstacle courses, that kind of stuff, where it's all assessed. It's all quite good fun. It's all, it's perhaps a bit full on over there, because they're all fit and healthy, right? And they've hit us up to come and deliver the UK version of it on that same day, and then that'll be open to the public. So again, the public can come in and see all these veteran stalls doing different stuff. They can come in and see veterans having a good time doing these events and activities. Then we'll get shot of everyone, and then basically we'll have a barbecue and a bonfire and a bit of a king ganguli, and again, sort of members, people that have been involved, the competitors, and camp the night out. So yeah, it should be quite cool, I hope.
It sounds ace. When is that and where is it? If we
25th of July. 25th of July down in Pippingford Park, which is a MOD training area in Sussex near Crowborough. I went there 1,000 years ago, and I kind of recognised it when I drove through, as much as you can recognise a training area, right, when you're in the real world.
Yeah. But
no, it'll be a good spot. It's, again, my mind's eye, it's going to be an amazing day. The scenery is fantastic. There'll be plenty of people there. We'll raise a few quid. We'll make some positive noise. We'll have some good activities, and just help put us on the map.
I think it's a brilliant the festival theme, and having veteran-owned brands there as well as a bit of a party, I think, is ace, because there's so many of the veteran brands, and like you mentioned about the WhatsApp groups, I'm like Paul and I remember of a few of them which have got like a number of veteran-owned businesses who just help each other out.
Yeah.
And there was an example of one where two businesses in a similar industry, actually, one of them had a bit of a flood,
Yeah.
a bit of a flood in their storage unit. So stock and all that kind of stuff is a problem. Almost like immediately someone else who's, again, they sell similar stuff was like, I've got space. I can drive over. I've got a van. And you can come and store it in mine. And that level of like camaraderie within the veteran community. And like you said about supply chain issues, and the same thing, it's like people asking about things like direct to consumer, or what about shipping labels? What about this? And people straight away just saying, this is who I use, giving away like that, what you would call in that competitive industry in the civvy street, where it's like, none of these are our trade secrets. In the veteran community, it's like, go for your life. This is who we use.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah. And there's enough space for all of us, right?
Yeah, 100%. There is absolutely enough space for all of us. So go on, Paul.
I was going to say, so with all your with the experience of running Veterans Can and where you've got to this point now, if someone wanted to do something similar and you could give a sentence, if you could boil it down to a sentence of advice, what would you say for that person?
Give it a whirl, give it a crack. Like I said before, I think that, that don't let, because it's never been done before, don't let that guide the yes or no button. If you believe it, then do it.
Absolutely. Love it, mate.
You wanted, but
it is though, because it is, a lot of people just hesitate. Procrastination cripples like success, doesn't it? Like I said at the beginning, before we came online, we had a podcast for over a year before we actually recorded an episode of a podcast. And now we're 50 odd episodes in, so it is definitely that. I think if you're going to go for it, and if you're struggling for money, or you think you need a bit of a cash inject, then join Veterans Can.
There you go.
Do you know what I mean? And go to the Dragon's Den of the veteran community, and get what you need.
Yeah, exactly.
Gareth, thank you so much for giving your time up and coming on the podcast and telling us about Veterans Can. I think what you do is incredible. In fact, I'm going to touch on one other thing, actually. The beer you have. So you have Veterans Can beer and you have the coins. The coins you get which is amazing, by the way. And the coins are from Tom from Challenge Coins. And that's just one thing I wanted to touch on as well, was you being a veteran organisation, using other veteran organisations to support what you're doing. And I think that's another thing that we're very good at. If you want to get coins made, you go to a veteran-owned company, and because they get the message. And I just wanted to touch on that with the beer. And you do a thing with the coins where almost like a pass it on. Is that right?
Yeah. So when, I haven't got one here, but when members join, they get them. And this is effectively your membership coins. They're all individually numbered. Mine's number 1. I'm very lucky. So that's that's what you use, and that's when you want to place your vote, then you use your membership number. So again, that's on that. So and we don't really do it, but we could do it. But that's conventional challenge coin. You stick it in your pocket, take it everywhere with you. Then you get a smaller coin, sort of half the size, and we call that a pay it forward token. So again, that's how you spread the word. That's how you go and do something good for another veteran out there who may not have heard of Veterans Can. There you go, that's yours. Then then that encourages them to join, them to get involved. And we've had a few kind of competitions where we've whose token has gone the furthest around the world. We've had them travel, as you can imagine, all around the traps. And then take a photograph of it at the top of a mountain, or whatever it is. So so all these little bits are quite good fun. And going back to what you said, when we needed them made, it was a no-brainer for me to go to a veteran-owned company and caught up with Tom, and again, they looked after us, we look after them. It's that cycle, and the same with the brewery. Again, the brewery is veteran-owned, based in Gosport. We've known them for quite a while. And they look after us. So every can that's sold, we get I don't even a couple of pence per can that's sold. Every can that's out there, it's got the QR code on it. So they're now rebranding, so they've got regimental cans and that kind of stuff. So you got the Army Hair Corps who badge up their own beer, and we get 50p a can. Again, but it's Veterans Can beer. It just gets a name out there, and people say, "What's all this about?" And that's just part and parcel of the family. It's great.
I think it's brilliant, mate, and long may it continue. Gareth, thank you so much. Really appreciate you coming on and sharing the incredible story about Veterans Can, and can't wait to see who benefits next. Can't wait to see the outcome of the Veteran Games, and and all the other brilliant stuff you're doing.
Well, hopefully you'll be there, mate. So works well. So thanks very much for the opportunity. Yeah, that's it.
Thanks very much.
Take care, my friend. Bye bye.